Hello and welcome to You Mad Huh, a podcast conceived out of brotherhood and presented with love. We have what we hope will be an intellectually stimulating and thought-provoking set of topics for today. Uh, we'll be covering media and politics, especially the Joy Reid firing or dismissal, as well as the challenging and changing landscape of media in relation to politics. We're also going to look at the budget fight that's coming up. But before we get started, why don't we introduce our panel members for today? We want to welcome back Brother Ken Merritt. I'm going to call him Ken, You Can't Handle the Truth Merritt for this episode. We have Richard, They Stole My Dog and Cooked It Free.
Wow.
We've got Anthony, Kelly is better than Beyonce Humphrey.
Damn right. 2 times.
We have Raymond 2 times, right? We have Raymond, AAU Sports Ain't Shit Cooper. And then we have me, the moderator for the session, Paul, just grabbing by the biscuits, Fleming. Let's dive into.
Why you always get the cool name?
Why you checking my hump? Why you checking my moniker name though? I mean, Hump.
That's true.
I couldn't think of anything for myself, so I just threw it in there, man. I just jacked it. You my LB, so that's good.
He's really
Selfish Paul.
Rent it for the night. He rents it for the night. We're good.
Y'all pass me some off. Y'all pass me some on for next week for myself.
I got you.
Let's dive into this serious stuff, man. These politics is consuming the nation right about now, and we had something that kind of popped up that people probably weren't expecting, and a very prominent figure in political media was let go. It's Joy Reid. So how do you guys feel about that? Ken, why don't you jump in? I know you're gonna be chomping at the bit on this.
Yeah. And my take actually might surprise you though, P.
Okay.
You know. I'm probably going to talk out of both sides of my neck when it comes to what happened with Joy. Right. On the plus side, on the this is effed up side, right? I am a huge Joy Reid fan, right? I have followed her ever since she started. It kind of popped on MSNBC, and watching her show watching her when she was a guest, watching her show on the weekends, and then her 7 p.m. show was locked in my kind of library on YouTube TV, picking it up every night. And so I'm a huge fan of her. I think she's a brilliant woman. I think she's a prominent voice. I think she does a great job of representing our thoughts. I think she does a great job of representing an underrepresented voice when it comes to Black women in media. And so Joy, personally, I am extremely sad to see. I'm also annoyed by the notion of it's another kind of Black woman at MSNBC kind of out, right? After the president, who I don't know if you guys know, but the president was a Black woman, right? And she had really run the place for I think 4 or 5 years. So that's on the side that I hate this, right? On the other side, I'm actually just not at all surprised, right? And I can't necessarily argue with the notion that the side that I am on, the left, in our media kind of voices, the chambers, I won't call them echo chambers, but maybe they probably are. All that stuff needs to change, right? And it needs to change in a way that, and Rich will love this. It needs to change in a way that we don't trail the right when it comes to, media, messaging, figuring out how we continue to kind of make our perspectives known, felt, and advance the point of view. And so something's got to change, and maybe this wakes us all up to those of us again on the left that we need to be looking for bigger, for better, vehicles, voices, mechanisms, modems, whatever term we want to use, to meet the moment that we're in, because right now it's not working.
Yeah, great point. Great point. Anybody else want to chime in? Rich, I know you wanted to chime in this a little bit. I know you're probably surprised a little bit at Ken's response, but where are we looking from the conservative side? Does this even matter to you?
I'm very impressed with Ken's observation, and I would go a step further to say that the Democratic Party is hemorrhaging. I mean, the writing is on the wall, and they have had a lot of love from the legacy media. I know you've heard me say that before, but the memo is out. I mean, she lost her job. Don Lemon lost his job. Chris Cuomo lost his job. Jim Acosta lost their job. And they all had the same mindset. And I think in the moment that we find ourselves in, where a large swath of our country is becoming tone deaf, the constant accusations of racism, the constant accusations of fascism, the constant hand wringing, the constant look at what he did now. It's losing its effect, and it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. So I resonate with what Ken said. Ken is right. I think in order for and I don't want to conflate the two, but I just find that yes, she was a fan of the Democrat Party. It was a known fact. She wasn't just reporting news. She was an opinionated news person. Her show was based on opinion. It wasn't always based in fact. And there is a level of sympathy. I don't like anybody to lose their job, but she's the same one that was making comments saying the MAGA tears. And here recently, she's had a couple meltdowns. Now, I guess she's got some liberal tears, but, things are changing right before us. The landscape is changing, and Ken is acknowledging that. And that, in my opinion, is going to be the first step to changing and redirecting so that you can stop the hemorrhaging.
So I'll jump in here. Please let me jump in because I think that was a high level of hypocrisy, Rich, to talk about a news station that is singularly focused on telling a side of a story when we know we have a constant. I'm not even going to do the justification of saying the name. We have a constant stream. When you go into just about any redneck diner, you're going to have it on the television, and it's a constant stream of lies and misdirection. So I found it kind of a little bit of hypocrisy there. But again, if you're coming from both angles, I hate network television. I hate what it's become. I hate that how people twist and turn stories and they skew them to one, get ratings, or they skew them to deliver the message that they're getting piped in. And it's no secret. It's not a secret behind it, because you could tell there's talking points every day. If you sat there and watched back-to-back shows on any of these networks, they're all talking about the same thing. So while Joy Reid personally didn't watch a show consistently, caught it every once in a while, but it's funny that you mentioned Joy Reid. It's funny that you mentioned Don Lemon. Any one of those folks who are no longer working with those networks have just as much the ability to reach people, maybe not as massive a scale, but social media and the different podcasts like we have here have changed the game around how people are getting their information, sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad. But just because they're not on that major network does not mean they don't have a mass of folks who are, especially if they're paying attention to the facts of politics. They're talking about data that matters. They're talking about stories that link what we have today. Look, let's be real. 50, 60 years ago, ABC, NBC, and CBS during their 6 o'clock nightly news or 6:30 nightly news, that was the truth that everyone knew. We go back, you see files released, you know that all this stuff wasn't the truth. You know that things weren't told. You know that a clean picture was being painted, and it hasn't changed today. Those media outlets still have the same prerogative or the same perspective that they've had in the past. It's just a lot more information out there that can be shared, and depending on what side of the fence you sit on, you either say, "Oh, that's false; those are lies; that's propaganda," or you're sitting on the other side of the fence saying, "I'm glad someone's finally revealing the facts. The truth's going to come out. Read the memos on the street." Come on, man, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. You know it's bullshit.
So, Hump, I want to add to that, right? Because a part of that is you saw that Bezos fired the chief editor at the Washington Post as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, in my opinion, all of these things are in sync. If you have a high level opinion, you don't fit the narrative, right? So they're creating the space to tell the perspectives that they want to tell. Whether it's Fox News, whether it's MSNBC, whether it's the Washington Post. And kind of on the back end of what Ken was saying is we have to develop new platforms for folks such as Don Lemon or Joy Reid, because otherwise we're not part of the machine, right? So the machine gets to create and deliver the content that they choose. And I will say this, Rich, the Republican Party has grown very well at doing that.
Yeah. So that's a great point, and kind of a segue into this next piece about the changing landscape. And I thought about it for a little bit, and I looked at the numbers of the Joy Reid's last show in comparison to CNN and to Fox, and Fox has a huge part of that market. But the thing is, younger people don't watch TV like that. They don't watch these shows. They get their media, their information from, other sources. Let's put it like that. So I can see that a liberal show would have a smaller market than a more conservative show, because older people, the more conservative market is who we see watching TV now. I asked my son, how do you get your news? And he's just like, from my phone,
TikTok.
TikTok, with any of those media outlets. And I was like, how do you verify that? So and his thing was, I go out and I look at other stuff. But my point is, how people get their news, their politics is different than it was before. So Joy Reid getting let go because of numbers or whatever, I don't know how important that really is in this grand scheme of things. We will see. And I don't know if that really says anything. To be honest,
it's a losing business model. I mean, Washington Post, I'm glad you pointed that out. They are hemorrhaging
again.
Subscriptions. Yeah, because they can't keep anybody watching or reading, because the views are no longer aligned with how their majority base was thinking. If you recall, Bezos would not allow for the signing off on a opinion piece, and they lost like 800,000 subscribers or something like that.
That was last year.
The endorsement of Kamala Harris is what you're talking about.
Right, that was last year during the campaign.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, what does that say about a news source when you lose 800,000 people just because you weren't able to endorse a candidate? How about we just have neutral, just factual information be provided?
I rebut that in the fact that over the years, these major publications have always endorsed a candidate one way or the other.
That's correct.
Very, very rarely have they sat on the sidelines and not endorsed. So we had a pivotal moment where someone in control of a news station, because that endorsement of that media outlet didn't align with the owner, he pulled a lever that he could pull. And I don't know if it is a direct reflection of 800,000 subscribers, but it's a freaking Washington Post. Who gives a shit? Who's reading newspapers anyway right now? And who cares about what they put online? I don't. I haven't read a Washington Post article in
So it's
40
a
years.
losing business model as well, and he's trying
Absolutely.
his best. He's trying his
But
best.
why
to
use?
find a
But
way
why that? But
to
why
get
use
some
that
attention.
point? But why use that point to try to
Well,
say that the reason that it happened? See, that's the bullshit.
The reason I use that point is because businessmen have to make tough decisions, right? Continuing to do the same thing, and it's not performing well.
So if that's a business decision, why?
So what does that have to do with supporting a presidential candidate?
Exactly. Why does it have to be political if it's a business decision?
Because in that decision,
Because
to
it
change
conveniently aligns with the agenda that you want.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this.
That's the reason why.
Do you think that Bezos somehow he's always been an ultra liberal. He's been a darling of the liberal community. Bezos has always been a darling to the liberal community. When he bought Washington Post, everybody's, oh, I love him. So you think he turned on a dime? What happened?
Yes.
What happened that made him turn on a dime? Did he just change overnight? What happened? Did he go through a transition? Let me ask y'all that way, because that y'all might understand that.
That answers your question. Yes, to answer your question, yes.
Is he a trans CEO?
What he has done has pivoted. As what he has done is pivoted. As are most millionaires and billionaires in this country, they have pivoted to their advantage. So yes, he has changed.
And we're going to ignore like the transition slight. We're going to ignore it.
Why are you ignoring it?
Talk to me. Keep it high end. Will you word the pivot as well?
I want to speak the way you guys understand. I just want to make sure I'm on the same,
What you're trying to do is prickly right now, Rich. Let's be real. So
here's the spin factor.
We got the memo on that.
What you are absolutely like, I think you underestimated my sentiment here, right? Because here's where what I said that I think you agree with. That my side of the aisle, I won't speak for anyone. I'm on the left, and my side of the aisle is losing this media race, right? We are, right? In every sense. If you look at Fox and who watches Fox, even if you look at in the new media landscape, who the top podcasters are from Joe Rogan on down, we are losing that race, right? So we needed to we need to react differently. But let's be very clear. Media is broken in this country because your side of the aisle broke it, right? This is the legacy of Rush Limbaugh. Fox News launched in the 90s with the objective of not telling news, but to advance the conservative media points of this country, right? And with that, people have followed, people have picked their sides. People today, and Hump brought up a great point when he talked about 50 years ago when there were 4 networks that focused on being down the middle, telling the story and being real life journalists, right? Going all the way back, the right in this country started calling them the liberal media just for telling the truth. They launched the radios, took over. Rush Limbaugh became a thing. Fox News became a thing. And right now we are losing because you guys started down this road in a world of grift, in a world of complaint, in a world of everyone else is terrible and bad, that more people today have latched onto and care about than they do over understanding truths, right? Okay. And right now, and the reason I endorse that we've got to do something different when it comes to someone like Joy Reid is because as long as we're telling truths and you all are spouting bullshit, we will continue to lose. So we just got to do something. I'm not that I'm saying we got to stoop to the way you guys are, because when truth ain't truth and neither side is telling truth, we're in a really bad place. But let's be really clear right now. That we're losing because the lie goes around this country 1,000 times before the truth gets 1 cent of attention from people around here, right? And so that's why we are where we are.
Yeah, I disagree. Let me just say one last rebuttal. So Joe Rogan, who was also a darling of the liberal media, he advised. He does interviews now, and he lets everyone know that he never wanted to transition to the point that he sounds more like a moderate Republican. He never wanted that. But under what happened to him during COVID, where people made ill comments about him, belittled him, maligned him, because he used an alternative way of getting back healthy when he caught COVID, it started to make him to question and to look at things differently. Now, it also didn't help that they invited Kamala. Don't let me say it wrong. Invited Kamala to be on the podcast, and all of the requests and wrangling, they said, no, we'll have it here, but we don't have to talk politics. We'll do whatever you want. The woman was too scared to be on it. Now, I know Ty ain't on here with us tonight because I know he can't stand us talking about Kamala. But Kamala, she showed by not being willing to be on Rogan how ill-equipped and ill.
Okay. Go ahead, continue, Rich, because I've got a definite rebuttal for that.
To handle that type of.
Okay, so just before our recording today, there was a report that came out that said that was completely not true.
It wasn't.
That she had actually basically been over backward to try to get to Texas to be on his show, but his people were giving them some misdirection.
Where did you get this report?
I heard this today. I'll look it up and I'll have it on the next segment if we need it.
It was the talking point of the day, so it must be true, right? It was the talking point of the day, so it must be true. But Rich, really, tell the truth. Do they send out the emails every day that say these are the talking points of the day?
Hold on, fellas. Hold on. One at a time.
Why are they telling us this on
hold on. Hold on. To your neutral quarters for a second. To your neutral quarters. I'm glad y'all are mad though, because I want to see the passion. I want to see what you really feel. All right. So go ahead, continue, Rich. What were you saying now?
I was just asking, why would they wait until February 27th to tell us that?
Rich, do you understand?
Y'all believe that all of this is in truth, but they wait until February 27th to tell us that no.
So back to.
But I think what I was getting at, Rich, there's a couple things, right? First of all, the coverage of what was happening between Kamala's team and the schedulers at Rogan is not new, right? It came out at the time that they were trying to make it work, right? But there was a tight window because that he had, and that they wanted X number of time on a certain day. It didn't work for the calendar, and it just didn't work.
Okay.
And that's the story that came out at that time, and it's been what they've talked about since.
You got the largest, most influential internet podcast personality. You get access to all these young audience members, and you can't find a way to get there.
So I'm telling you, they said they tried. They actually bent over backwards to get there, and they gave them the runaround. But here's a point I want to make here. So
exactly
in terms of hold on, fellas. Hold on, fellas. So let's kind of dive into a little bit more of. We talked about truth in the information, and it seems. And I guess the question is: Has there really ever been full truth in the information we were getting? But also, Rich, you mentioned one side giving certain information. You got to realize Fox settled almost $1 billion suit because they blatantly lied about voting machines. So we can't say it's one side or the other. But the question is, have we ever really gotten full truth? And why are our leaders actually listening to things that they know could be right or could be wrong? There's no vetting of that. Elon Musk, in his interview with Don Lemon, he said that, why are we allowing them to reduce standards so people can get into the medical profession, get a license to practice medicine? And that was not true. It had never been true. But he said, well, wait until the replies come in. You'll see that they're examples. How are you going to, you're the richest guy in the world, and you're relying on replies from a tweet to confirm something that you said? So we see a lot of this misinformation, but have we ever really gotten full information? You can't say the right has given it to us. You can't say the left has given it to us. So how do we find out, how do we get the real truth?
So Pete, can I go first? Because I gotta push back on the notion of what a false equivalency here, right? I think part of the reason we allow ourselves to get caught up in this, that it's both sides, is that we've lost our way in the conversation. I will always come back to, and I think everyone owes it to themselves, to go look at what the mission of Fox News was when it launched, when Rupert Murdoch and those guys launched it, and what it is now. It has never been to be a journalistic organization. And so it started down the road of pushing a conservative agenda for America. Right, and then what we've had on the left is a retaliation, in many ways too much so, to try to kind of give the other side, or even offset, or even steal back, or meet the output and the success that Fox News was having. And so back to Hump's point, you almost have to be critical of the entire machine, because in many ways they've lost their way more times than not on the journalistic points. But it is not an equivalency. One side, to the point you made, only one side faced defamation suit over a election, right? And they couldn't even give facts around the single most important thing in our democracy, the results of an election, without advancing the propaganda of it. That doesn't happen on the left. You know what I mean? The left has its issues. MSC has its issues. CNN, I'm hypercritical of them, because the 10 o'clock show is hosted by someone who's right here from this area. So I'm a little bit of a fan of her, because I remember when she was a kid and everything. But that show is a shit show. They just go back and forth, trying to have somebody from the right, somebody from the left, and do all this kind of stuff. And so I'm super critical of all of that, but it's not equal. And I just want to start there, P, because we've slid down a notion of a propaganda in lieu of journalism, and one side advances shit to spin. The other side has demonstrated that they're in the mis and disinformation business.
Yes.
Full disclosure. Let me say this. Before we got started, I was told to turn my TV down, and it was on Fox. All right. I do watch Fox, but I watch all the channels. All right. Fox is not trustworthy, but neither is CNN, neither is MSNBC. None of the legacy media is trustworthy. It's just not. But to make it seem as if everything is so squeaky clean on the left, where we had a man in office who all he wanted to know was when pudding was going to be served, and they removed him 2 months before the election, didn't let y'all vote. They didn't let y'all vote to decide anybody. They immediately put someone in the position. We talking about y'all talk about the fear of justice and
is that the media's fault though?
Is this a topic we're talking about? Is this a topic?
Is it?
No, it's not. But
okay, it's not relevant to our media discussion. It's not relevant to the media discussion.
Well, the reason I say this is
it's deflection. It's typical deflection. When you get tired of a point, you pivot to something else as a talking point that you must have got for the day.
Okay,
Stop doing that, Rich, man.
I did a horrible job of explaining how the media sat there and carried the water the whole time, knowing that man was not coherent.
Let's have a discussion point on whether a former president is coherent or not. But to have that as a part of the media discussion.
Oh my gosh! During the debate, nobody knew. Oh my gosh! I didn't know he wasn't capable of his job.
Even during the debates, there had to be fact checkers, right? There had to be fact checkers because the right was spinning with their agenda so badly. There had to be fact checkers on the spot during debates to verify truth. Come on, Richard.
Okay, listen.
Come on, Richard.
I'll acknowledge the Haitian situation. Paul checked me on it on social media, but don't make it seem like there's not an effort to hide actual negative things that are going on while that party was in charge for the last 4 years.
All right. Okay, so quick question, Rich. What's worse? Not acknowledging that, maybe not fully acknowledging that a president is a little, is having some issues, or not acknowledging that someone bought a president.
Someone bought a president?
Yes. You've got a guy, the richest guy in the world, bought a president, is what he did.
Y'all really believe that, huh?
Elon Musk is the president.
Wait. Y'all really believe that?
You don't?
No.
Rich, he was in the cabinet meeting, and he was running the meeting basically. Trump said, if there's anybody that doesn't like Elon, you go get out of here. Come on now.
And how did he get that? It damn sure wasn't his good looks. You see the way he was dressed?
Damn sure when it's political savvy.
It was $250 million.
Did this kid tell him? Did this kid tell him did this kid tell Trump to shut up?
Yes.
Like he said, you shut up.
You're not.
Come on, dog. Rich, you got to admit something. You got to admit something weird is going on.
I will say this. I am cautiously aware of Musk, and I wonder what his mindset is. But to think that Trump's not running the show, you guys are buying into all the propaganda that's being pushed to try to vilify and to make it seem as if Musk is running the show. He is not running the show.
Rich, the propaganda from who? From something that they told us, from the propaganda that someone told us, or the fact that he was on TV the other day holding a chainsaw talking about what he's doing to the government. Which one is the propaganda, bro?
That's what he was assigned to do. That's what he was assigned to do.
Carry a chainsaw on television? He was assigned to do that?
It was a gift that was given to him. It was a gift given to him.
That he had to show on television and rake across the emotional and the financial ties of people who are getting let go on a day-to-day basis. He had to bring a chainsaw on television, and because that's his job. That's his job to do it, and he got a gift to do it.
It was
insensitive.
And I still would like an answer though, Rich. Whose propaganda you think we fell to? The propaganda of somebody told us what he's doing, or the fact that he was the one with the chainsaw and is the one standing in the Oval Office and the one in the cabinet meeting and the one sending all the tweets and lying about all the shit he's found. Who's propaganda? Because I ain't listening to that from someone else. I'm talking I'm sorry. I'm talking about the propaganda that on episode 1 you dropped in all he was founded that later came out and said it wasn't true. So which propaganda are you accusing
Okay, which ones were untrue? Which one wasn't true?
Yeah,
Paul pointed out that the social security checks probably didn't go out, but $35 million did go to Guatemala for sex changes.
You read
What's
off
mind-boggling to me is that none of you are disappointed with how our money is being spent. And the other thing is, you guys, do you agree with them recently voting to when they voted to remove taxes on wages and tips? The only people who voted against it were the Democrats. Every single one of them voted against it.
That was not in that bill. It wasn't even a bill, but it wasn't in there.
That's an absolute.
It wasn't included.
What does that got to do with this conversation?
Well, it has everything to do with it.
Nothing. We start talking about that. We go down a rabbit hole, and it has nothing to do with what the question is on the table. We're not talking about the bill. If we're going to talk about the bill, let's talk about the bill. Let's have everybody have a chance to read through the bill. Let's talk about what the impacts are. We're talking about a question that Ken has on the table that you still have yet to answer.
Who's propaganda? I'm still waiting for that. Whose propaganda has us? Has me? I won't speak for my which has me. Because I gave you a list. I gave you a list of the talking points.
I give you a rebuttal. You can't show me where the $35 million didn't go to Guatemala. You can't show me where they don't know where $4.7 trillion are in certain departments.
If I give you the $35 million, what about the other things that he read it off, and then you came on this podcast and read to us that has been rebutted since?
Not all of it has been. Who rebutted it?
Accusing us of falling for, because I listened to you. I listened to him. I listened to you on this podcast.
Check it out. Rachel Maddow said that he got $400 million under the Trump administration. That ain't propaganda. Is that propaganda?
Yeah, who got $400 million?
Who got $400 million?
Elon's company, Tesla, received a $400 million contract for electric trucks. The contract was put together in December of last year.
Actually, the way that worked, there was a.
Oh my God!
No, Rich, you can look this up. I looked it up right after you mentioned it. I just hadn't said anything about it. So, that Biden said that he wanted a concerted effort to try to attempt for government agencies to buy electric vehicles. Right. The only company that put in a bid was Tesla, but they never finalized that contract at all. So, I can't say it's not completely true, but
because it was the only one that bid, and you can't have a single bid. But that'll go away because we're losing all our IGs. And since Elon is making $8 million a day, after firing IGs because nobody's going to be able to check, then it doesn't matter anymore.
Well, one thing we want to acknowledge though, Rich, we all did acknowledge last week that we don't mind cuts. We don't mind saving money. Hold on.
Ken said all of it was fake.
Hold on, Rich. I'm talking. Hold on. All right. Look, we've all said I'm more left leaning, right? I'm not a right leaning person, but I consider myself in the middle. We all acknowledge that we don't mind cuts. We don't mind shrinking government. But what we do mind is the fashion is being done. Because what we have is an unelected guy who was supposedly the head of the department, but now we say he's not the head of a department that's supposed to be fully transparent, making cuts to funds that have already been approved by the duly elected representatives of the country, right? We're allowing him to say, no, you can't spend that money. So when you say no, he didn't buy a presidency, he bought something because he's telling people what to do in a position that he shouldn't really be able to tell anyone what to do. You have to at least admit that. No one voted for Elon Musk. Am I right? Did anyone vote for Elon Musk for any office? Did anybody vote for him to an office? Yes or no? Is my question.
No.
So how can he stop funds that duly elected officials have approved? That's what I don't get.
So
how do you allow that? How do we allow it?
So do you think that all throughout all the presidencies, there's never been people who were unelected, who were appointed by the president, who made tough, difficult decisions to make changes.
To stop funds? To stop funds?
You don't think it's ever happened?
To stop funds? I haven't seen it.
And if
have we had a balanced budget put forward in the last?
That's Congress. That's Congress.
Okay. Well, I mean, we're talking about funds and money, and so my question to you is, when things aren't functioning right, and you make a decision to.
Okay.
The promise to his electorate, the promise that Trump made to his electorate, is a full wholesale reset and a removal of waste.
Great. That is a great segue to this next section, which is the budget fight. And that's a great question. You said, hey, are we trying to save money? Well, it looks like they're trying to save money on the backs of poor people. Yeah. Yeah. So let's jump to this next topic. This Kim pulled us back in. Let's talk about the budget fight that's coming up. And you know, they've just kind of voted on a kind of a framework of what that budget would look like, and it looks like Medicare or Medicaid, Medicaid is on the chopping block, and tax cuts are on the menu for the wealthy. So it looks like we're cutting from the people that need it and giving to the people that don't. And Trump said, "Well, we won't touch these entitlements." But it looks like that's about to happen. So where do we go with this? Where are we supposed to think at this point, guys?
I definitely think it'll be troubling if he does mess with the entitlements. That's one thing he has always said that he won't do. He has said that they will investigate entitlements, and if there's fraud there, they'll cut that out. I might be accused of taking this down another rabbit hole. Hump is good at keeping me on track, but let me say this. I think it would piss a lot of people off if that so-called refund of all the savings was sent out to the populace. You got a lot of you got people like Jasmine Crockett out here talking about, we don't give out money. We don't give out money. We don't do that. But they were giving out money. They were giving money to illegal immigrants. They were putting them in nice hotels. They were making sure that they had SNAP cards to go get food. So if he was able to send money to the populace, his poll numbers would go even higher. And the only reason I mention that is because we're talking about the federal budget and, you know, the middle class and the poor losing out. I don't see them doing that. Call me crazy for being optimistic. I told y'all on the last podcast, I was optimistic about the future. I think the good things are coming down the pipeline.
You don't see them doing what? I'm sorry. What part?
Well, cutting into entitlement programs that people need. I don't see him.
How do you feel about them cutting into? How do you feel about them cutting into education, the Department of Education? Cutting from public schools. How do you feel about them cutting programs that provide?
Well, I obviously want to see what the layout is of the options of.
Okay, how do you feel about Social Security getting cut? How do you feel about cancer research being cut?
Social Security isn't going to be cut.
How do you feel about a person who's making $8 million a day in government contracts versus a person who will get $65 a day after this bill is passed? Which means if they get anything, be in the bill. What's going to be if they get anything? How do you feel about a bill that creates a $328 billion deficit in its first year? Yeah. and a $295 billion deficit in the second year. I mean, before when another party was in office, I was concerned about my kids' future. I don't want a country where we're going to be so far in my debt that my kids won't be able to survive. But now we're going to suggest a bill, mostly driven by a Republican Party, that's going to drive huge amounts of deficit. And oh, by the way, have tax cuts for the billionaires who are supporting them.
So is this something that was put out recently that showed these figures? Is that where you're going on? Because
this came out this morning, brother. This came out this morning. Okay. It was talked about in the House this morning.
Okay.
Yeah, the first vote was a procedural. The first vote was a procedural vote. They don't have the details yet, but with the numbers they want to cut, it's almost impossible to not touch. And they have said it. They want to cut some entitlements. So that's already been put out there. But just the numbers that they want to cut, you can't do it without touching some of those things. It's just not possible. So we'll see if it actually happens. Again, we've got our 2-minute party shots here. So Rich, why don't you go ahead and jump in first?
All right. Gentlemen, I remember flying pre 9/11, and I'm sure we're all old enough to remember when you would go to the airport and you could watch. You could actually go all the way into the terminal and watch your loved one fly away. It was much simpler and less stressful experience back then. The process felt seamless. It was without the long security lines and invasive procedures we face today. I thought about a flight I took recently where we now are taking off our shoes and getting into body scanners, the same body scanners that are just like x-ray machines. You know, when you go to the dentist's office to get an x-ray, they throw this big cover on you to protect you from the x-ray. But now we as a willing populace go and stand in front of the x-ray machine. And this is all because of the tragic events of 9/11, seemingly orchestrated by a few individuals, not only resulted in immense suffering, but also laid the groundwork for policies that inconvenience millions while benefiting the same few who I think orchestrated these events. Adding an intriguing layer to this discussion is the surname Chertoff, Michael Chertoff, that used to be the former Secretary of Homeland Security. Interesting fact, Chertoff, which derives from the Russian word chort, means devil. So he also was a co-author of the USA Patriot Act, and his consulting firm, the Chertoff Group, was one of the main ones promoting the body scan technology at U.S. airports. Chertoff became a vocal advocate for these scanners, and it's become a hallmark of invasive airport security measures, raising concerns over a conflict of interest. It begs the question, was his push for these technologies genuinely for public safety, or were his financial ties to firms profiting from their deployment the true motivation? The intertwining of government influence and corporate interests calls into question the integrity of the official story of 9/11 and decisions made following the attacks, further illustrating how the actions of a few can impose lasting burdens on the many.
Preach.
I just wanted to share that with y'all because I'm an equal opportunity exposer, and I think my closing segment, I will always try to expose something. So I'll leave you with this as homework for next week. And people who watch this can leave a comment in the comment section. What does Loretta Fuddy and Tafari Campbell have in common?
Say those names again, Rich. Say those names again, Rich.
Loretta Fuddy, Fuddy, and Tafari Campbell.
They both have some pretty uncommon names.
This is true. But it'll be interesting to see if there's any comments on it.
All right, Quake, you want to jump in with yours?
Hey, man, I appreciate the dialogue, but I want us to not miss the fact that these topics that we're touching on, there are a lot of people that are hurting. And unfortunately, those numbers keep increasing by the week. So let's stay grounded with regards to having empathy and compassion for those that are affected by some of these decisions that are being made with this administration, and know that the decisions that are being made should and are supposed to be in the best interest of the public that they serve, not internal personal gains.
Amen.
Right. Hump.
Yeah, I want to wrap a bow on a couple of episodes that we've had and just kind of leave us with a thought. And since we're giving out homework, maybe we can touch on this when we come back. When we started talking about the cuts in the federal government, and we started talking about what those demographics look like, you start talking about race and ethnicity of those folks. 40% of the federal workers identify as a part of a racial or ethnic minority group. 18.8% of those were Black or African American. 10% identified as Hispanic and Latino, and 6.7% identified as Asian. So when you start talking about the others, let's just say the others, and you lump it in, you're talking about 40% of a workforce that identifies. So if you're going to start making those cuts, you're going to affect, again, we keep talking about that gap, but that gap is created. And then you have a billionaire like Elon Musk, whose net worth is over $500 billion, who meets with U.S. senators, whose average net worth is $2.3 million, and makes $15,000 a month with paid health benefits, to discuss cutting Social Security benefits to people who get an average of $1,700 per month. How's that make sense? So I'll end with this. Believing a small group of billionaires are suddenly working tirelessly for the benefit of working people requires a specific and spectacular level of stupidity. I'm gonna end that.
All righty then.
All right, Kid.
Yeah, for me, I'm talking to those of us on the left and in the center. Right? For the past, I don't know, 10 years, Donald Trump and the MAGA movement have owned grievance. From everything to fraud and wasting the government, to they're eating the pets, to people coming across the border, you name it, they've made all kinds of grievance their rally cry. I want to say to us on the left, and even those in the center who might be interested in joining us, it's our fucking time for grievances. It's okay for us to have the same type of energy and skepticism and negativity they have sometimes, right? When Trump started to name his people and his cabinet, oh, that was okay. Or I'm tired of hearing, oh yeah, there are things wrong with DEI. Or, oh, it's okay. I wish they would just do an audit instead of all these. No, we need to be crying holy bullshit to everything that they're doing, because just as my good brother just talked about, you have billionaires and millionaires in there basically running wild, doing what they deem prudent, while we can sit back and kind of wait and see what happens. No, it is our time and okay for us to have grievance, call bullshit, and get fired up too.
All right, excellent.
Nice.
Well, I don't really have anything specific, but I did kind of learn some things, not just from this podcast, but just during the week, in that people will ignore things that don't match up to what they want their reality to be. Right? I learned that earlier in the week. And sometimes you have to face those realities to be able to move forward and to progress to where you want to be. Okay. So there's some hard truths that every person should maybe look at in themselves so they can get to where they want to be. So maybe this week, the people that are listening to this, just face some hard truths and deal with those truths and try to gain something from them and move forward, but don't ignore them because they will keep you in the same spot that you were in, that you're trying to get out of.
Nice.
So I think there's a lot of great topics today, fellows. The input, the insight was outstanding. I thought, we may not all agree and we might get mad sometimes. But again, the sun is going to come up tomorrow. So,
Amen.
And looking forward to talking to you guys next week and hope we get our brother Ty back. Ty had a death in the family, so we'll be glad to have Ty back next week. And we have some really great things, I think, next
Stop
week.
looking, listen.
Right.
Enjoy
And thanks
the
for
vibe.
joining, fellas.
Me and my people.
Absolutely.
Good night,
Keep
bro.
it locked.
Good night.
So take a toke or take a sip. Hold up. Don't take a sniff. I hope you're feeling this deep in your bones. What you been missing?